So our third question on the life cycle here, key question being, what are other nations' approaches to pursuing jurisdiction over child and family services? And this slide came out of a direct request from a lot of our directors saying that we know that everyone's in these different places in jurisdiction. There's, especially in BC, well over 100 distinct nations, and everyone's at a different place on this jurisdictional journey. So a lot of these folks have been giving presentations at symposiums. When we were all online during COVID, tons of those presentations came out as well too. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've just compiled some of these that are easily accessible online so that you can hear nations speak about their journey from their own voice. And it begins with Cowessess First Nation, who actually has now shared their act that they've written. So that comes up top first, so you get to open that up. And then all the way moving down from Cowichan tribes, Tanaha, Stalo First Nations, everyone at different places. And so I would really encourage you to go through. Some of these videos are a little bit longer just because it is the nation describing their journey from beginning to where they're at the time of recording. So again, another resource that will continue to be updated. Lots of move and change and shaking it up is happening all of the time in this field. And so I'll continue to update this as we have more information available. But I think this was definitely one of the key areas that I heard from multiple directors that we were really needing to have everything in one place to be able to learn from one another is so important. So that is this slide here for you. And the fourth stage of the planting seeds and growing nations life cycle here is the sun. So we need the sun. How are we going to be able to begin and articulate our nation's pathway, which ultimately leads to the question of what funding is available to start pursuing jurisdiction. So there are two really handy guidebooks that are quite fulsome in terms of thinking through all of these different stages of development. I've heard from some of our directors how important it was to start forming a working group with people who are technical experts, consultants who do this work specifically, and when working in that working group, that you can start to create your own pathway and articulate it according to your needs and where you're at. So the BC Acts has the 7 Cs Planning and Reporting Guide. And then we've also got the Indigenous Evaluation Toolkit from the 7 Directions group. So both of these guidebooks are not specific to child welfare, but they are specific to approaching things with an Indigenous worldview and from their own experiences. So I think these are really good examples that are also applicable to child welfare, even though they're not specific to it. And then we've also got the Wrapping Our Ways Around Them. So this is specific to Indigenous communities and child welfare, very handy starting place and certainly good reading for that working group to start with. But just wanted to give a bit of variation because that's not the approach that works for everybody. And then specific to the funding, so we have Indigenous Services Canada's website, and this outlines their different funding initiatives. And that will include everything from capital assets to coordination agreements, et cetera. And then Bill C92, this circles back a little bit to the first slide, just looking at the options. So based on which option you go to pursue jurisdiction, you're going to have different funding availabilities for that as well. So circling back a little bit to that piece, just to clarify as you go through, which route am I going and what funding is going to be available regardless. And it's also good to just be cautious, as we're often reminded by our chair, Mary T.G., that some of these routes that might seem really good up front are going to really hinder the funding that you qualify for down the line. So to really start having these discussions in a meaningful way with folks in your working group who do have the best interests of children and families and are putting those interests first are really important conversations to have. So proceed with caution is what Mary would want me to say at this stage here. On the last slide here, just some more resources and supports available as you think through these different stages. So really we've categorized it here. So the Indigenous Child and Family Services Directors These are the technical experts. These are the folks who have been doing culturally appropriate child family services on the ground for the last more than 30 years, and many folks beyond that time. So anything that's related to practice, to service delivery, these are the folks, your Indigenous agency, that you'll want to connect with those types of questions. In terms of the policy and legislation building, we do have the Indigenous Child and Family Services Director Secretariat, which is the team that I'm on. And so we do analysis as directed by the broader forum that's meant to benefit all of the Indigenous Child and Family Services agencies. So projects like this one. So we're available for analysis as it comes through our Directors Forum. And in terms of accessing funding, always good to go directly to Indigenous Services Canada's BC region. They're the folks that are going to be able to provide some of that more specific information about which funding streams are available to you. The next stage is then getting into the legality of it all. So we've got some legal contacts and advising. I've created a roster that links out here. And just to preface this by saying the only vetting that we've done for folks on this list is either they've been recommended by directors who have already started this journey and have people that are already working with them on these projects. So they've made the list. And as well, we had our Children Our Way National Forum for Indigenous Child and Family Wellbeing. And so folks who had registered and attended that conference who had some sort of legal expertise or background were also included. But this is a list that's available for your use. It's not one that we've gone through and curated specific people for different things. It's just, again, a starting place and a resource. And we've included 3 specific lawyers who have done incredible work so far and contributed quite a bit to this field. So would definitely recommend these 3 individuals as people to reach out to if you're looking at getting some legal advice. And then finally, we know the value, of course, of talking to other nations who have been on this journey and might be farther along this journey or down the pathway a little more than those of us who are just starting to think and talk about it. So down in Winnipeg, we have Earl Stevenson. And here in BC, we have Mary T.G. And both of these folks have been absolute leaders in jurisdiction and will have a lot to offer in terms of things that you might want to consider that they didn't at the time, lessons learned, et cetera. I'm sure more than I could give voice or word to here. Yeah, so this is all of these things, as I said before, they do link out. So this is meant to be an overview of what's available. And really, I do encourage you to take this as a resource to start building relationships and talking about these opportunities for learning from one another and for really starting to shape and transform a system that has for so long, since its inception, been breaking apart children and families. And so now there's a real opportunity to start serving the children and families and community in a traditional, cultural, and loving way. And I know that every director at the Indigenous Child and Family Services Directors Forum that I've been able to serve and work for has the child's best interest at heart, and the family's best interest at heart, and the community's best interest at heart. So please do connect with them directly, and I remain available via email. You can contact our secretariat at acc-society.bc.ca, and we'll be happy to help you out in any way we can. So best of luck to you on your journey, and I hope this isn't the last time that you see or hear from me, because there's lots of work to do. And I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to get to do it and contribute. So thank you for watching thus far, and good luck, best wishes, and all my relations. Hi, hi.